At 3:30 a.m. on June 17, 1944, the Saipan Beachhead was cloaked in a dense, humid darkness that hung over the coral and scrubbed like a suffocating blanket, broken only by the distant, ominous rumble of 37 Japanese Type 95 tanks advancing steadily down the western ravine toward the Marine radio station, each metallic growl echoing across the terrain like the heartbeat of an unstoppable storm, a vibration that seemed to shake the very earth beneath the Marines' foxholes. Colonel Tadashi Goto, commanding the 9th Tank Regiment, trusted in the doctrine of mass night assaults, convinced that the combined weight of his armored vehicles, concentrated in this narrow approach, moving under the cover of darkness and obscured by the natural folds of the landscape, would allow them to smash through the American lines before defenders could respond effectively. He believed that the surprise of night, combined with disciplined mass and momentum, would overwhelm the Marine positions and crush resistance in a matter of minutes, ignoring the inherent vulnerabilities in his machines, whose thin, 12 to 25 mm armor, designed for infantry support and protection against small arms fire and shell fragments, would be adequate to shield crews just long enough to reach their objectives. Yet, the Marines had anticipated this scenario and had spent the previous day and night preparing an interlocking web of defenses, blending artillery, infantry, bazooka teams, and tank support into a lethal matrix designed to turn any Japanese approach into a death trap. Sergeant Chuck Shira adjusted his grip on the olive-drab M1 Bazooka, its metal still warm from the lingering heat of the day, feeling its reassuring weight in his hands while scanning the dimly lit terrain, noting the faint shadows cast by scrub, coral outcroppings, and the ridges that funneled the enemy into precisely the paths the Marines had predicted. Around him, 6 other Marines had spent hours fortifying their positions, deepening foxholes, arranging sandbags, and calibrating their weapons to exact distances, creating overlapping fields of fire that denied any tank or infantry formation the chance to exploit gaps in the defensive lines. Private First Class Robert Brown crouched beside Shira, methodically inspecting the blunt-nosed M6A3 rockets for the 3rd time since sunset, knowing that each warhead, crude in appearance compared to the sleek artillery shells overhead, represented the difference between survival and annihilation. He understood the physics of the shaped charge intimately. The copper cone would focus the explosive energy into a molten jet, capable of piercing armor regardless of impact angle, producing temperatures hot enough to melt steel, and that against the 12 to 25 mm plates of the Type 95s, these rockets would be devastatingly effective at ranges between 100 and 150 yards. Lieutenant Colonel John Walker patrolled the positions with quiet confidence, his calm demeanor reinforcing the Marines' belief that their defenses were not only sufficient but optimized, that every measured step of preparation, from range cards to overlapping fire sectors, would combine to produce a killing ground from which few Japanese vehicles or men would emerge. Beyond the forward positions, M3 75mm self-propelled guns crouched and defilade, their crews practicing fire missions with meticulous precision, ready to unleash rounds that could finish any tank that survived the initial onslaught, while a platoon of M4A2 Sherman tanks waited in reserve, their 75mm high-explosive rounds loaded and ready, each vehicle a mobile bastion of firepower capable of reaching targets before Japanese armor could close to effective range. The radio station, humming with activity, maintained constant contact with the fleet offshore, USS California and her escorts poised to light the battlefield with 5-inch star shells, each illumination round capable of transforming night into daylight over several hundred yards, and the gunnery officers had carefully plotted concentrations along the expected avenues of approach, ensuring that no enemy advance would remain undetected or unpunished. Since midnight, Shira had been listening for the telltale signs of enemy preparation: the low, growing rumble of engines across the coral flats, the clatter of tracks grinding over rock, the sharp, piercing commands that carried farther than men realized in tropical air, each sound signaling that reconnaissance had given way to a committed, coordinated assault, the kind that demanded everything the attackers could muster to achieve a single decisive objective. The previous night's deceptive quiet had lured both men and tanks into a false sense of security, but now the sounds of preparation, growing louder by the minute, indicated that the assault was imminent, larger and more concentrated than anything the Marines had faced in the chaotic first hours of landing. At exactly 3:30 a.m., the darkness erupted into chaos as Japanese tanks appeared in clumps of 4 or 5, their silhouettes barely visible against the darker ridge beyond, infantry riding on the hulls, light machine guns chattering, a force trained in doctrine but untested against the layered, technologically integrated defenses waiting for them. The Marines had anticipated this exact sequence. Walker's calm voice crackled over the radio net, issuing orders for illumination and fire for effect. Seconds later, star shells burst overhead, bright artificial suns that shredded the darkness, casting harsh white light across the battlefield and transforming coral ridges, scrub, and sandbags into a photographic nightmare of sharp shadows and stark relief, exposing each tank and infantryman as a distinct, vulnerable target. The Japanese crews, trained to rely on surprise and darkness, froze as their supposed advantage evaporated instantly. The thin armor that had seemed adequate became a fragile shell, incapable of withstanding the combined firepower that now rained down upon them. Brown loaded the first rocket into the M1 Bazooka, the two-man team moving with the practiced precision of men who had drilled hundreds of times, aiming at a Type 95 positioned approximately 120 yards away, its flank exposed. The rocket streaked across the gap with a high-pitched whoosh, striking forward of the tracks. The shaped charge detonated, smoke curling from the crew compartment as infantry dismounted from the tank's hull, dazed by the sudden, precise devastation. The kill chain, meticulously rehearsed and coordinated, unfolded with deadly efficiency. Bazooka teams stripped mobility from the leading elements, 37mm guns switched between armor-piercing and canister rounds, devastating infantry and light armor alike, and the self-propelled 75mm mounts, as well as the Sherman reserve tanks, finished the survivors, transforming what had been planned as a swift, decisive Japanese assault into a fragmented, uncoordinated series of individual actions where each vehicle became a target rather than a spearhead. The Western Ravine became a tableau of destruction, each explosion illuminating the next target, each rocket and shell adding to the cacophony of destruction, revealing the limits of Japanese doctrine and the lethal power of American innovation and preparation. The Type 95 tanks, equipped with 37mm guns, could engage infantry at short range but were outranged and outclassed by every weapon brought to bear by the Marines, and the armor that had once seemed sufficient, 12 to 25mm of steel, was irrelevant against shaped charges that focused chemical energy rather than kinetic force to punch through the plates with devastating efficiency. Colonel Goodow's plan, drawn from doctrine forged in earlier campaigns where American forces lacked adequate anti-tank weapons and training, proved obsolete in the harsh illumination and overlapping fields of fire created by the Marines and naval gunfire. Each rocket fired, each shell dropped, each salvo of canister rounds multiplied the lethality of the next, creating a layered defense in which surprise, speed, and mass mattered little against careful preparation, technological advantage, and disciplined execution. By dawn, 31 Japanese tanks lay burned and destroyed across the Coral, the 9th Tank Regiment rendered ineffective, its commander dead, its crews killed or scattered, its doctrine exposed as fatally outdated in the face of infantry teams armed with lightweight bazookas, self-propelled mounts, Sherman tanks, and the precise application of illumination from naval star shells. The battle was not merely a defensive success. It was a demonstration of how industrial capacity, training, innovation, and coordination could combine to turn individual soldiers into precision anti-tank forces capable of neutralizing entire regiments. Sergeant Shira, Private Brown, and their comrades methodically cleaned and prepared their weapons even as the smoke cleared and the hulks of Type 95 smoldered, recognizing that their success was the product of planning, technological insight, and disciplined execution, not luck or brute courage alone. Observers and intelligence officers swarmed the wreckage, photographing damage patterns, examining penetration points, cataloging the performance of M6A3 rockets and 37mm and 75mm rounds, documenting the effectiveness of chemical energy warheads against thin Japanese armor, and confirming the fundamental tactical lessons. Shaped charge weapons allowed infantry teams to defeat armor without requiring large, cumbersome artillery pieces. Overlapping fields of fire amplified individual weapon effectiveness. Illumination eliminated the advantage of night assaults, and disciplined coordination among multiple weapon systems ensured that massed enemy attacks became predictable, controllable, and ultimately annihilated. The psychological impact on both sides was profound. For the Japanese crews, each explosion, each immobilized tank, each penetrating rocket was proof of the obsolescence of their approach, while for the Marines, each kill reinforced confidence in American technology, training, and tactical planning, demonstrating that a small, well-prepared, and coordinated force could neutralize numerically equivalent or even superior enemy formations with minimal casualties. By 7 a.m., the beachhead was intact. Japanese infantry attacks, now deprived of armor support, faltered and dissipated against coordinated fire from 37mm canister rounds, small arms, and disciplined observation posts, leaving the Marines with control of the western ravine, a site that only hours earlier had seemed vulnerable to a swift armored breakthrough. The outcome not only ensured the security of the Saipan Beachhead, but also provided proof of principle for future Pacific campaigns, demonstrating that technological innovation, disciplined execution, and tactical foresight could overcome doctrinal rigidity and numerical concentration. Private Brown, cleaning his rifle alongside Shira as the morning sun rose, reflected on the transformation of the battlefield. The M1 Bazooka, once considered almost experimental, had redefined infantry anti-tank capability. M6A3 rockets had neutralized enemy armor with lethal precision, overlapping fields of fire, naval illumination, and coordinated artillery had multiplied their effectiveness exponentially. And American industrial and tactical innovation had turned what might have been a catastrophic night into a decisive victory, eliminating an entire Japanese tank regiment and accelerating the timeline for control of the Marianas. Lieutenant Colonel Walker's after-action reports would note the destruction of 24 tanks within the 6th Marine sector alone, while cross-unit narratives would account for 31 total kills, highlighting both the intensity of the engagement and the challenges of coordination during night combat, while intelligence teams would use the data to refine and perfect doctrines for subsequent operations, proving once and for all that preparedness, technology, and coordination could render even the most disciplined and courageous enemy units impotent.